Few artists in the history of music have mastered the art of transformation like Kendrick Lamar. Throughout his career, he has continuously reinvented himself, each alter ego offering a glimpse into a new layer of his complex identity. These personas are not mere masks, they're symbols of his journey as an artist, a man, and a leader. From the raw, hungry voice of KDot to the ominous presence of the Boogeyman, Kendrick uses these characters to explore themes of self-mastery, cultural history, and the inner struggles that define him. But these alter egos are more than just creative expressions. They're a roadmap to understanding Kendrick's brand. Each represents a phase of his evolution, a reaction to the pressures of fame, the struggles of Black identity, and the weight of being a voice for the voiceless. Through these characters, Kendrick has built an unshakable brand, one that is both feared and admired in the music industry. As Kendrick Lamar's influence grew, so did his presence in the cutthroat world of hip-hop. But Kendrick wasn't just any artist. He played with alter egos like KDot, Kung Fu Kenny, King Kunta, Mr. Morale, and later, the Boogeyman. A moniker earned through his relenting lyricism and fearless confrontations. He embraced the role of the trickster, a figure that Carl Jung described as disruptive, boundary-pushing, and transformative. The trickster archetype, as defined by Carl Jung, serves as both the creator and destroyer, challenging norms and pushing boundaries. Figures like Loki from Norse mythology, Sun Wukong the Monkey King, Anansi the spider from African folklore, and the Joker from modern-day comics all represent tricksters, characters who break rules, play tricks, and expose hidden truths. For Kendrick, being a modern trickster meant using his music to shape up the industry and culture itself. His words became sharp weapons, cutting through facades, exposing insecurities, and holding a mirror to society. His audience isn't just casual listeners. These were young men and women ages between 18 and 35, often Black or people of color, who were tired of surface-level entertainment. They wanted more. Before the world knew him as Kendrick Lamar, he went by another name, KDot. The alias was more than a moniker. It was the embodiment of his early identity as an artist. KDot represented the brash, high-energy young rapper who was still finding his voice in the chaotic streets of Compton. It was during these early years that Kendrick began crafting the dual narrative that would later shape his career. KDot was born out of necessity, a persona that allowed Kendrick to express himself while navigating the complex landscape of gang violence, systemic racism, and the socio-political tensions around him. KDot was a reflection of the survival mindset. Young, hungry, and focused on making it out the harsh reality of Compton. KDot's early branding was intentionally crafted to resonate with an underground audience, those who understood the struggle of inner city life and the survival mentality that came with it. Through mixtapes like C4 and tracks such as I Do This, KDot gave his listeners the energy they were craving, the sound of a young rapper determined to prove his worth in a hyper-competitive, often dangerous environment. However, as Kendrick's artistry evolved, so did his understanding of his role in the industry. He began to see limitations of KDot. While the persona helped him break into the scene, Kendrick realized he needed to go deeper, to tell a more nuanced, personal story. The transformation from KDot to Kendrick Lamar marked a pivotal point in his branding. By dropping the persona, Kendrick embodied his real name, signaling a shift towards a more introspective, socially conscious music. KDot's journey didn't disappear entirely with the name change. It became part of the narrative arc in Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City, an album that masterfully blends the aggression of KDot with the wisdom of Kendrick Lamar. The album tells the story of a young man trying to navigate the treacherous waters of Compton's gang culture while maintaining his moral center. The Good Kid represents Kendrick, while the Mad City represents the chaotic environment that shaped KDot. In the songs like Art of Peer Pressure and Swimming Pools, Kendrick marries the brash energy of KDot's world with the introspection that defines his later work. He needed KDot to survive and break into the industry, but he needed Kendrick Lamar to transcend it. It was 2013 when Kendrick Lamar unleashed his now legendary verse on Big Sean's Control. Its words sent shockwaves through the hip-hop world, naming names J. Cole, Big Sean, Drake, Jay Electronica, and effectively throwing down the gauntlet. But this wasn't just a diss track, it was a challenge. Kendrick wasn't playing. He didn't just call out his peers, he declared himself the king of New York. A title so bold, it drew criticism and respect in equal measures. This single verse shifted the entire hip-hop landscape, cementing Kendrick's position as the leader of the new school. The fallouts were public and personal. Big Sean, the artist who featured Kendrick on the track, was blindsided. Though there wasn't direct beef between them, the tension simmered beneath the surface. Jay Electronica, who was also on the track, found himself overshadowed by Kendrick's powerful delivery. By reintroducing the competitive spirit of KDot, Kendrick further cemented his reputation as a formidable force in hip-hop. It reminded listeners that while Kendrick Lamar had evolved into a thoughtfully, socially conscious artist, the fire and aggression of KDot still burns beneath the surface. Kendrick's evolution would continue in the heart of his landmark album, To Pimp a Butterfly, where we encounter one of his most powerful personas, King Kunta. The name itself draws from a deep well of historical and cultural significance, blending personal empowerment with the legacy of resistance against oppression. But who is King Kunta? Kendrick Lamar's adaptation to the name King Kunta traces its origins to Kunta Kinte, the real-life historical figure from Alex Haley's roots, a man captured and enslaved, but whose name became a symbol of defiance and resilience. Kunta Kinte was a man who refused to accept his chains, symbolizing a spirit that could not be broken, despite the cruelty and humanity of slavery. Kendrick, in naming himself King Kunta, taps into this legacy, framing himself as a modern-day version of Kunta Kinte, someone who resists systemic oppression, while claiming his rightful place as a king in his own domain. The king title symbolizing self-empowerment, an assertion of dominance over a world that historically sought to diminish and control black bodies. In King Kunta, Kendrick spits lines like, "I was gonna kill a couple rappers, but they did it to themselves," a subtle warning to those in the industry trying to mimic or compete with him. He positions himself as the ultimate figure of power, but not through violence. Instead, he does it through intelligence, artistry, and self-awareness. Kendrick frames himself as a voice for the voiceless, calling out oppression, hypocrisy, and systemic racism in both the music industry and society at large. Through King Kunta, Kendrick gives a voice to those who feel trapped within systems designed to exploit them. In 2017, Kendrick Lamar introduced yet another persona, Kung Fu Kenny. This character wasn't just a name or symbol, it was a reflection of Kendrick's journey towards self-mastery, discipline, and spiritual awakening. Kung Fu Kenny is Kendrick's manifestation of growth, both as an artist and a person. Kung Fu Kenny is directly inspired by a character from the 2001 film Rush Hour 2, played by Don Cheadle. In the film, Cheadle's character, Kenny, runs a martial arts dojo and exhibits a calm, self-assured demeanor, all while maintaining control over his environment. Kendrick, being a fan of old martial arts films and their philosophical undertones, used this character as the basis for his own version of Kung Fu Kenny. Kendrick's fascination with martial arts films, especially those that emphasize discipline, self-mastery, and the battle between good and evil, found a perfect outlet in this persona. Kung Fu Kenny plays a key role in communicating Kendrick's inner conflict and growth. Tracks like DNA and Humble reveal a character who is constantly at war with himself, trying to maintain a balance in a chaotic world. In tracks like DNA, Kung Fu Kenny represents Kendrick's acknowledgement of both virtues and the vices that reside within him. He's not denying his flaws, but rather embracing them, understanding that mastering oneself requires accepting every part of one's identity. In 2022, Kendrick Lamar introduced his latest persona, Mr. Morale, with the release of Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. This character is a stark departure from his previous aliases, like KDot and Kung Fu Kenny. Mr. Morale is the most introspective, vulnerable version of Kendrick Lamar we've seen. a character grappling with his inner demons, personal trauma, and the weight of responsibility as both an artist and a cultural figure. Mr. Morale emerges from Kendrick's ongoing journey of self-exploration, healing, and reconciliation with his past. As a character, Mr. Morale reflects Kendrick's personal struggles with mental health, generational trauma, and the burden of fame, while his past personas, like Kung Fu Kenny, representing external control and self-mastery. Mr. Morale turns inward, focusing on emotional vulnerability and healing. Kendrick wanted to step away from the hyper-masculine image of a hip-hop icon to reveal the human beneath it all. Mr. Morale is Kendrick's way of unearthing parts of himself that were previously hidden, his fears, regrets, and unresolved pain. The purpose of Mr. Morale is to address trauma head-on. Through this character, Kendrick tackles the themes of therapy, personal growth, and the challenges of breaking generational cycles. This persona is Kendrick's way of saying, "I'm not perfect, and I'm not invincible." He's no longer trying to be the flawless artist who's always in control, like Kung Fu Kenny. Instead, Mr. Morale is Kendrick's declaration that healing and growth come from vulnerability, not perfection. Through songs like Father Time and Mother I Sober, Kendrick reflects on how unresolved issues from his past affect his present. Unlike his previous works, where Kendrick might have pointed to external problems, such as societal injustice or systemic oppression, Mr. Morale is all about introspection. Tracks like N95 and Crown show Kendrick grappling with the pressures of being viewed as a savior while being unworthy or emotionally drained. In Crown, Mr. Morale wrestles with the impossible expectations placed on him as a leader, both in music and in the Black community. The refrain, "I can't please everybody," resonates deeply, reflecting Mr. Morale's realization that Kendrick cannot live up to everyone's demands while still prioritizing his mental health. It wasn't until Kendrick appeared on Future and Metro Boomin's track Like That he redefined his entire legacy and completely reshaped how the world perceives him. For Kendrick Lamar, the nickname the Boogeyman is perhaps the most fearsome and mysterious persona yet. It's not just about being the best, it's about being the artist that everyone fears, whether they'll admit to it or not. The Boogeyman persona is rooted in Kendrick Lamar's reputation as an artist who strikes fear in the hearts of his peers, not through violence or bravado, but through his unmatched lyrical skill, critical acclaim, and his ability to shake the very foundations of the rap industry with just a few verses. The name Boogeyman emerged following several iconic moments in his career, particularly the 2013 Control verse that sent shockwaves through the industry, where Kendrick Lamar called out nearly every major rapper. It was Drake who took Kendrick Lamar's challenge personally. Drake, at the height of his fame, felt that Kendrick had challenged his throne. It began subtly, through interviews, subliminal disses and lyrics, and carefully chosen words. The fallouts weren't immediate, but they were real. Drake, always careful with his image, maintained a level of diplomacy, but Kendrick, as the trickster, couldn't resist poking at the surface. In his track, The Hard Part 4, Kendrick threw more shade, implied that Drake's reign was coming to an end. The beef wasn't just lyrical, it was a clash of philosophies. Drake's brand was built on being the relatable, emotionally vulnerable superstar, while Kendrick's was about challenging the system, exposing truths, and becoming the voice of the people. This beef played out on stages, in interviews, and even how their respective fan bases viewed their roles in hip-hop. As Kendrick's battles in the rap world continued, his legend grew. But unlike many other rappers, he didn't fade after his beefs. He thrived. The trickster archetype allowed him to remain elusive, yet powerful, unpredictable, yet steady. And while Drake might have emerged as the more commercially successful artist, Kendrick's influence reached deeper. Through every battle, Control, Drake, Big Sean, Kendrick used the archetype of the trickster to remain one step ahead, leaving the industry scrambling in his wake. His legacy wasn't just about the beefs he won or the albums he sold. It was about the stories he told, and the truth he exposed, and the system he continues to challenge. The Boogeyman isn't about intimidation. It's about a standard. Kendrick Lamar has set a bar so high that many artists avoid stepping into the ring with him. The Boogeyman persona is a reflection of his desire to stay at the top of his game, constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible in hip-hop. For Kendrick, Boogeyman means that when he speaks, everyone listens, and when he drops, the world stops. The Boogeyman persona has shaped Kendrick's brand as an artist who doesn't need constant exposure to maintain his status. He operates from the shadows, emerging only when the time is right, making each release a cultural event. This strategy has allowed him to maintain an aura of mystique while ensuring he's never overexposed. In a world where artists are often confined to a single narrative, Kendrick Lamar has defied the boundaries of identity, storytelling, and branding. Through his alter egos, he has not only redefined what it means to be a hip-hop artist, but also challenged the industry and the world to see Black artistry through a more complex, layered lens. His characters, each with their own purpose, history, and meaning, serve as symbols of empowerment, rebellion, wisdom, and introspection.